And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Representative Dorothy Moon joining us from Stanley, Idaho. Representative Moon, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Pretty good. I've heard about you for many, many years from a young man we call the Sweet Prince here in the Treasure Valley, Tea Party Bob.
Yeah, Bob and I have known each other for a long time. He's great.
He's been a big fan of you and your work. So when I saw that you were in Nevada with the Bundy folks, that you were there and Ammon Bundy hugged you and such, figured we had to have you on. So if you could, please give us some background on what brought you to Nevada and your time with the Bundy family, your insight into this riveting case.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on. And I guess when I became a legislator, when I was sworn in the end of November of last year, I decided to go down and meet with 5 Idaho detainees. 2 of them were in Legislative District 8. Ammon Bundy I had never met, was in Emmett, and Scott Drexler was from Challis. And before I became a legislator, I was a teacher and a special ed director in Challis. So I knew Scott Drexler, and I couldn't believe he had been detained already for quite a while, and no trial was in sight. So I went down with my husband last December and met with the 5. We had Todd Engel from Boundary County, and then we had Eric Parker and Steve Stewart from Haley. So we had 5 fellows. And after I talked to all of them, it was astounding to me that they were being held without bail. Some of these guys have never even had a traffic ticket, and no speedy trial was in sight, and they were even having trouble getting access to good counsel. So when I came back, session started, and as soon as I was out of session, I started writing Attorney General Sessions, and it's very difficult to get letters to Sessions or any other D.C. office because of all of the security and getting mail to them. So it was after August in the second trial for the first tier, and I saw that Eric Parker from Haley and Scott Drexler was looking at a third trial, and almost all charges had been removed, and they had 2 charges left. And I thought, are you kidding me? It was 10-2 to acquit on the first trial and 11-1 to quit on the second trial. And when you look at the expense, taxpayer expense, and the railroading, I believe, by the federal government to convict these men, you've got no choice but to get involved. It's just a travesty.
Well, why has there been a reluctance? I have my own theories here at KIDO Talk Radio for anybody to carry the mantle of this story anymore. It was big news in Bunkerville. It was big news in Oregon. But once the heavy hand of the government came down and once, tragically, Lavoy Finicum was killed, there was a media blackout. Maybe there's some outlets in Oregon that covered it occasionally, but it ceased to be a national story.
Well, I think that's intentional. I don't think the media wanted this story out. We've got, to me, it really represents the battle between the people in the West, the hard-working folks, the ranchers, the loggers and miners who are pretty much been run out. It's their livelihoods that are at stake. And they don't want folks to know that we want to work the land, and there is multiple use on this land, and always it has been up until recent, and we need to get that back. So to me, it's been an assault on the Western way of life, and these guys are the poster boys for it, without a doubt. They are the last rancher family in southeast Nevada. A little bit over 50 ranching families are gone because of the federal government weighing down on them with fines, prison sentences, the whole gamut. And this family, they're the ones who have brought the issue to light. And I guess my involvement is mainly because it's such an injustice. It's been brought to light also to Attorney General Sessions and to some other legislators in different states.
Right. We go back to the federal government's interesting. Representative Moon at KIDO Talk Radio, you're saying that even to get a letter to the Attorney General is tough, and you think that, Jeff Sessions, I've personally known for years, but it's amazing that you as a state representative here in Idaho can't get a letter to the sitting Attorney General, and yet it's supposed to be the government's of the people, by the people, for the people.
I agree with you. The one letter I sent June 1st, I got a response. It was August 20th, so pretty closely timed to the second trial's ending with this 11-1 to acquit on all charges. And when I received the letter, it was from the U.S. Attorney's office, and it was the director of that office. And I called them, and I said, how does Attorney General Sessions know that there are state legislators who are upset with what's going on in this Nevada federal court? And he said, oh, yeah, he knows. And I'm thinking, no, he doesn't know, because I'm surprised. I'm like you. I was kind of surprised that I hadn't heard back. So just that fact, and then the result of that second trial, it seems like it was a perfect storm. And it was right before the eclipse, which was big news here in Stanley because we were in totality here. But during that time, that's when the second trial ended, and I thought, oh, no, they're not going to a third trial. They can't. This is ridiculous. And so I penned a letter. It was August 27th. It was on a Sunday. And I know I started scrambling to get signatures on that letter. I had 34 within 2 days, and Representative Judy Boyle was helping me because she feels very strongly, too, about ranching community and protecting the ranching community. And so we came up with 34 signatures and immediately sent the letter off down to the attorneys for the defendants in Las Vegas so that they could enter those into the court proceedings. And we showed our support. Then I continued to get names, and it was about a week and a half later, Raul Labrador, also very concerned about the citizens here and what was going on, he also penned a letter, and he delivered my letter with now 54 signatures total, which is, by the way, a majority of our legislators. So we had 54 of 88 representatives, and it came out to be a 61% of the entire legislative body. So I think that's huge. I think that's huge that we have a majority of our legislators who are going to support and try to help our constituents when they're in trouble.
Indeed, that is a message. So the congressman personally delivered that to the Attorney General?
Yes, and so he had a meeting with him on a Friday for a couple of hours. He immediately called me and Representative Boyle. We had a conference call. And within the next few days, at the beginning of the next week, there's a plea agreement on the table for Eric Parker and Scott Drexler. I'm not saying it was a result of that letter, but I think it was probably a result of a lot of letters and a lot of input, again, shining a light on the issue. So it all has kind of come together. I'm very, very pleased to now realize what we wanted in the letter was that Ammon Bundy would be released so he could work with his counsel so he could get a fair trial. He's out, and now he's working with his counsel when the trial resumes on the 11th next week. We asked for Todd Engel to be given time served. Now, these men have been incarcerated for almost 2 years, and Todd Engel has some minor charges.
Without bail.
I'm sorry?
Without bail.
Yeah, yes, without bail. They've been held for almost 2 years without bail. And we asked that Eric Parker and Scott Drexler and Steve Stewart, they're all home. So it's good. I think we've asked for and received a lot of what we've wanted, but as far as I'm concerned, all these men should be out. There is no case. My husband and I went down last week, and we did attend the trial. And I think everyone needs to go. You know, some people will say, oh, these men need to be locked up and the key thrown away forever. They don't know. They've been listening to mainstream media when it is in those outlets. It's false information. The $2 million that supposedly Cliven Bundy owes, it's not. A BLM agent got up on the stand the week before I arrived there, and it was $8,850, $50 or whatever at the end there for trespass cattle. That was it. So these assessed fees that they keep putting on, which is standard for these agencies, does not even come close to the $2 million that's been put out by the media.
Representative Dorothy Moon with Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. What do you say to people that have been covering this from the media's perspective and say that, You've had people draw weapons on federal agents, and that's really what this is about. And maybe not the case in Oregon, which I having visited Oregon and visited Bunkerville, but you have those images that the media keeps replaying where you have people with their weapons, the BLM agents on the other side in Bunkerville. We covered it at the time, the Cowboys versus the government. How do you respond to those charges?
Well, who was really damaged? Who was damaged in both cases? In Malheur, Lavoy Finicum lost his life. No, there weren't any federal agents who were hurt in all of that. When you look at what happened in Bunkerville, who was really damaged? The cattle that were killed and thrown in the ditch and buried, that's the property of the Bundy family. They were damaged. When the aunt was thrown down on the ground, she was damaged. It wasn't the federal government. So when this all started, and had anyone been at the trial this week, you would have seen where the special agent for the BLM lied. On the stand, it came out that he lied. The jurors heard it. We heard it. Everybody in the audience heard it. The question from Ryan Bundy is a standard practice for BLM to lie to the citizens of the United States. And the witness on the stand said no. But fact of the matter, a lot of times that does happen to get the desired result. And this was talking all about pre-standoff, and so they have been photographed. They've had cameras on their house. They had snipers trained on that house days before anybody showed up. So you tell me who came looking for a fight.
So you know for a fact they had snipers on that house before anybody showed up, kind of, and again, Representative Moon, you know more about this than I do. Reminiscence of Ruby Ridge?
They've had a command station with Dan Love a couple of miles from the house, and they had people surrounding around the house at a distance, but they did notice the cameras, so they were being surveilled very close to the house. But, yes, that was brought up last week in the trial.
Sure. Let me hit you with this one. You and your husband went down to the trial. What was it like when Ammon Bundy was outside? He hugged you. He thanked you. You know, we've correlated that to a God thing, considering how everything is so stacked against these guys.
It's so funny you say that, Kevin. We were talking about that on the way home. I have never seen God's hand so involved in a situation in my life. And this family, I don't want to, they are blessed in the fact that they're a very strong family. They know their rights. They're great Americans. They're very hard workers. And had you seen Ryan Bundy get up and testify, it was amazing. But I'll tell you, when Ammon came out, the smile on his face. Now, I had been to the prison in Pahrump, the Nevada Southern Detention Center, twice, once in December and again in October, because I wanted to meet with the other defendants also. And in doing so, after you've been in the hole for a couple of months in solitary, it's unbelievable to me. These are you're innocent until proven guilty. These are innocent men. We have people raping and murdering, much more, with really severe charges, out walking the streets on bail. It is unbelievable, the injustice here. But when he came out, there were dozens and dozens of people there, and it was just such a joyous moment. And the kids, he hadn't seen his kids for 2 years. His wife, Lisa, has been raising them in Emmett all by herself. So your primary breadwinner is gone. And you're trying to do everything you can and stay upbeat while your husband is looking at 80-plus years in jail for conspiracy. I don't know they find a strength in God without a doubt, and it's going to pull them through, and they're going to prevail. I just don't see how they could ever be incarcerated with all of this new evidence that's been surfacing this last week, this sealed evidence that has been withheld from the defense.
Representative Dorothy Moon with us, Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. We need to have you back, Representative Moon, because I do want to talk to you about the legislature. But two final questions. Can you describe your journey inside the prison? And can you describe the Bundy family, Lisa Bundy and Angie Bundy and everybody keeping it together while the breadwinners were in prison? You were there for that.
Yes, in the prison, I want to say it is a privately run prison. I know it's very expensive. A phone call was 25 cents. I think they make quite a bit of money off of these detainees. They're packed in there like sardines. And actually, what's pretty ironic, on October 16th, I had already bought my flight and my room. And see, this third trial was supposed to start on that day, and it was pushed off. But I went ahead and went down, and I wanted to meet with them anyway and give them some support. And when I went in there, the prison was on lockdown. They were doing a search of the men's bunks and everything. And had I left, I wouldn't have been able to see the 13. I wanted to see all of them. And so I was there all day. It was a very long day, and I got a special right to see them as a legislator. It was not a visitation day. So there were a lot of dogs and guys in black outfits running around. And so I don't eat or drink anything for about 13 hours. And sadly, that was also my mom's birthday, so that didn't go over too well with her. I had to call her and say, "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry, I've been in a lockdown at a federal prison." It makes a great story anyway. So as far as how they're kept, I'm not too hip on these private prisons, but that's a different issue, and we'll have to work on that later. But as far as these ladies and the support, I will tell you that even after my letter went to Sessions with all of our legislator signatures, I received thank you cards from all over the United States. I know that people from other countries, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, these men get letters from all over because these are countries that have socialism and they don't want to see it happen here. They love the American cowboy. They love the American West, and we're losing it. But I don't think we are now after what Trump did yesterday. I think things are going to change.
Indeed, it certainly is a story about God and faith and perseverance that Representative Moon, I don't know a lot of us would go through on our beliefs. And you were there firsthand. You've stuck by these men, these families. We appreciate that. Is there anything else that you can share with us this morning on KIDO Talk Radio, how these gentlemen will spend Christmas?
Well, they will spend it with their family. Thank goodness. They will spend it with their family. And, there's people can always show support by sending, funds into the Emma Defense Fund, and there's the Bundy Defense Fund, the Idaho Political Prisoner Fund Foundation. They direct money to the guys who need it the most, or if their kids need help getting clothes for school or what have you. But, they have kids that also have lives. And I know that a lot of folks have had fundraisers, and people get tired, and I know they get wore down because there's so many defendants here. But anytime they can help or just take them over a ham or a turkey, especially here in Idaho, just show them you care and you appreciate everything they've gone through, the sacrifices they've made for us.
Well, I tell you, you've lived up to your billing from Tea Party Bob, so thank you.
Well, I love Bob. And Kevin, I really do appreciate you having me on. It's just been so hectic since we got back from Vegas, and I appreciate you giving me the time to share that story.
No, and we totally understand that. We love to have you back, and maybe the next time we'll talk about this and the legislature. But please, if there's any news, consider us your resource. All
right. Well, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Moon. You have a great day.
Hey, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There we have it. Representative Dorothy Moon with the inside story of the release of Ammon Bundy and Ryan Bundy. Your thoughts, your reactions next at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And rolling along, getting your reaction to that interview from Representative Dorothy Moon. Let's go to the phones, and Cade in Jerome joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cade.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I've been watching the Bundy things ever since it first started, really heavy in the Oregon deal. And Pete Santilli was covering the vast majority of it. And I'm just curious what's happened with him. I know that he had been thrown in jail as well.
I think he's still in the Hooskow. I think Pete's still in jail.
Any word at all on him? I know that the Bundys are the main the main piece of this, but it's from a journalist standpoint, I can't understand why he's even in there.
Well, I think they thought that he got too close to the to the folks. Apparently, this just in, he accepted a plea deal as of October. Apparently, he has reached a plea agreement with the government, according to Redoubt News.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the call. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. And a lot of people wondering whether Pete Santelli was a journalist or someone else, but accordingly, from this published report, he reached a plea deal with the government, blah, blah, blah. The agreement to a felony count of obstruction of justice based on his blocking a BLM truck prior to the Bunkerville standoff. Things are going hot and heavy with this. We'll talk a little bit more about this next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio, but time to get you to work safely. And let's find out what's happening in your world on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
And blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Breaking news. John Conyers will retire today amid his sexual assaulting allegations and harassing employees. Conyers is the longest-serving active member of Congress. You remember old Conyers said he's not going, let the voters decide. Well, apparently he got out of the hospital and he has hit the road. So John Conyers, another person taken down by the sexual harassment and assault accusations. Of course, remember Conyers had the slush fund that we paid for. By the way, this is something that came out yesterday. The feds are coming to get your guns, everybody. Federal authorities sought to take back guns from thousands of people the background check system should have blocked from buying weapons because they had criminal records, mental health issues, or other problems that would disqualify them. Boy, so much for the veracity of background checks. This from USA Today. They reviewed the FBI records and found that the FBI issued more than 4,000 requests last year for agents from the ATF and explosives to retrieve guns from prohibited buyers. Can you see an ATF agent? And again, I have the utmost respect for law enforcement coming up to somebody's door, somebody that has like 27 guns and going, I need to take your guns. It's the largest number of such retrieval requests in 10 years, according to FBI records, and especially striking statistics after revelations that a breakdown in the background check system allowed a troubled Air Force veteran to buy a rifle later used to kill 26 worshipers at a Texas church last month. Well, wasn't it the Air Force that didn't put this guy on the list? Is that the breakdown? And how comfortable are you that the feds are coming to get guns from over 4,000 people that we're supposed to believe didn't pass the background check? Because the feds say it, does that make it true? Let's go to Robert in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Robert.
Hey, Kevin, you got the Google. I don't. But whatever happened to the father-son team that started that fire over there in Malheur? I understand they went back to prison. Are they out now?
No, they're not out.
How involved are they with? They're still in, huh?
The Hammonds are in for quite some time. Elder Hammond in his 70s, he's still alive. And the other one is alive as well. But no, they're still in prison. Trust me, Robert, if they had been released, we would know about it. And here's the other one. People have asked President Trump to commute their sentences, to get rid of this case against the Bundys. We'll see if he does that. We saw him give Utah back their lands yesterday. That would be a big stretch, but why not? You know, the Hammonds have done their time, and let's bring them home.
Well, now, the two guys from Haley, they took a plea deal, right?
They took a plea deal, and then some
are they out, or are they the time served for them, or
I believe that.
What happened to them?
Again, let me. I'm sure Holly will update me on Facebook because she's monitoring this program. So I'll get you that information from the source. If you keep listening, Robert,
love your show and love your callers too. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. We continue on. Who needs Google when you have Kevin Miller? Who needs a newspaper when you have Tea Party Bob from the Gem State Patriot on KIDO Talk Radio?
morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
Boy, that Representative Moon, I can remember you and even, what's his name? Steve that used to call in, Ackerman.
Good old what's his name?
Yeah, who you would rave about how Dorothy Moon was the real deal, and we're very impressed.
Well, she is the real deal. Known her for quite some time, and she has a very, very good outlook on life and a good outlook on what's going to happen here in Idaho, and that's one of the reasons she's one of our better conservative legislators.
Well,
we don't have a lot of those.
That makes one of us between us, doesn't it?
You know, you've been talking about one of the most important subjects that's facing the western states, including our own, when it comes to control of our land. For years, we have seen the federal government slowly but surely tighten its control on land designated to be run by them through the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service. What President Trump did at Utah yesterday by reversing what Obama has done, and similar to what President Clinton had done before they had led office, is a landmark move. This could be the end of the feds grabbing for more control. And I believe that some of the answer lies in the outcome of the trials of the Bundys and the unbelievable government conspiracy that has taken place over the past 2 years. You know, we're finally seeing how corrupt the government and our federal court system can be when it comes to prosecuting ranchers and farmers for violations of federal land uses. This trial of the Bundys has exposed the government officials for what they are, bureaucrats who are working for special interests and for those who want to take control of the land. What amazes me is that the leadership for the release of the Bundys came in part from members of our legislature and not from the governor's or the AG's office, which you would have expected, since this is kind of within their bailiwick.
Ride for the brand.
You know, the legislators who signed on for this request for the release of the Bundys should be congratulated, and those that didn't should be admonished. I believe that with President Trump at the helm now, we are heading for a much-needed change in attitude for both the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service. And in the future, only time is going to tell. When you think about the fact that the government controls 62% of our land, we must understand that losing the use of that land and the taxes that that land might generate for our state is unsurmountable. Maybe if we had the land, we wouldn't be so dependent on the federal government, which is responsible for supplying 35% of Idaho's budget. And that is the fault of the administration that we have had for the past 12 years.
Right, but I mean, that went back for many, many years before.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, but here's the deal. You get hooked on the money. What do you do? And where would our revenue come from to make up for that?
Well, the revenue would come from leasing a lot of this land out, not selling it, but leasing it.
Who would you lease it to? The the frackers?
You know, you lease it to people who are looking for minerals. You lease it to people who are looking for trees to cut down and forest them instead of allowing them to burn every year like 1 million, 2 million acres. That's what you do. You make use of the products and the things that God has given us in this state.
Well, then why don't you run for office? You seem like you have your platform. Why aren't you running for governor?
Yeah, because I can do much more good doing what I'm doing, and you know that as well as I do.
I always try and goad you into that.
I know you are. I know. Well, you know, I still have my signs from 2015. I just haven't brought them out.
I like it. Noogie in 2018.
Kevin, you're doing such a great job there. Thanks for having Dorothy on, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, before we go, though, let's go back to the Trump decision in Utah. That is major because Clinton had the land grabs and we had the Boulder White Clouds and everything else. I'm wondering, you know, if you could read Trump's mind, what he's really up to, because on one hand, you see it almost as business as usual, and you were, you know, opining about the Attorney General yesterday, and then on the other hand, he makes a major move, which the national media will never pick up on the significance of it, but I remember when Obama made that land grab before he left office. That was a big deal.
Well, I think Trump is a businessman. He always has been, and he's looking in the fact that this land is able to be explored for different uses. There's a lot of minerals down in Utah. Who knows, maybe a lot of oil down there, too. The point is that when you open that up, economies grow. When you open that up, states don't have to ask for federal aid. They can support themselves. notice any of the states that have their own resources and they have access to them don't have the problems we have, like we have in Idaho with our school system and hoping that the PILT system is going to pay for it. They have taxes coming in. They have economic activity going on. He is a true patriot when it comes to opening up our lands for exploration, but also in the freedom of free enterprise. Let people go out and solve their own problems instead of the federal government solving them for us. They don't solve anything. All they do is add the layers and layers of rules and regulations, and we need to change that. And I think it's coming. We have 4 years of him now. We're going to get another 4 years in 2020.
Tea Party Bob, thank you for the call.
Have a great day, Kevin.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller here as we continue on. Let's go to New Plymouth. It's been a while. Mark, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. I've listened to your radio quite a long time, and I like the way that you have balanced points of view. But I want to comment on what's been going on with the Bundys. I've heard yesterday and today quite a few comments, and most of them have been making the Bundys out to be some kind of heroes. And I'm a former federal prosecutor. I spent nearly 30 years as federal prosecutor, retired recently. And I prosecuted many cases protecting federal lands from all kinds of encroachment and people just going out, taking it upon themselves to do whatever they want on federal land. Those are public lands. The agencies do a pretty darn good job of administering those. The problem with the Bundys, and I'm not on that case, and I don't pretend to know all the facts of that case, but this much I think I do understand, is that they had no grazing rights on public lands where they were just turning their cattle free. When they do that, why can't I go out and turn my cattle free in the same place? And if everybody takes that attitude, pretty soon the public lands just get really battered down. And nothing gives the Bundys any more right to go out there and graze on those lands than somebody else. There has to be an orderly process. That was the issue on the Bundy case. Now, whether the federal agents were a little heavy-handed or could have taken a different approach, or if the judge could have stepped in and made a difference, that's a whole different thing. But the initial thing that started that whole controversy was the Bundys refused to take their cattle off public lands. So anyway, I just wanted to set that straight. I don't think the Bundys are some kind of heroes.
Well, we appreciate your service, Mark, and, we'd love to take advantage of your insight. We always love people that give us the other side of the perspective. It is challenging when you think about the federal government, number one, and number two, the treatment of the Bundys. And I know you've talked about the case, but what do you make of, in prison without the parole, without the bail, without any of those things, and how they've been treated?
Well, I think that everybody has to be treated according to due process of law. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm part of that case, and I don't know all the ins and the outs. And that's why we have federal judges, and who, for the most part, a lot of us as federal prosecutors think the federal judges are too biased in favor of maybe the lawbreakers, or they don't give stiff enough sentences. Usually I think they're pretty well balanced. When you get the prosecutors complaining on one side and you get the defense complaining on the other, that's a pretty good indicator the judges are pretty balanced. So I can't comment on the specifics of what sentence they got or why they got them. I haven't seen the pre-sentence report. I don't know whether you have. But a detailed pre-sentence report gets prepared in every single case, and the judge bases his or her decision, on what's in that report and the nature of the violation. I don't think the judges just take an ideological view and say, I don't like the way you handled yourself out on public lands. I'm going to throw the book at you. That just doesn't happen in my experience. And let me make one other quick comment. These comments about reversing what happened in when the Obama designated a bunch of land as public monuments in southern Utah, and then Trump recently reversed that. I'm okay with that. I don't care one way or the other. I'm not for locking up all federal lands. I don't want you to get that impression. I think federal lands need to be used, but they have to be used in an orderly process. And so your last caller was suggesting that we shouldn't lock up these lands, and people ought to go out there pursuant to capital enterprise, to free enterprise, the capitalistic system, just go out there and exploit these resources. Well, I'm okay with exploiting the resources. It's just got to be done in an orderly fashion. That's where federal law comes in. One last quick comment. Again, maybe I'm going on too long, but all this really started in 1976 with passage of the Federal Land Planning Management Act. Prior to that, all these lands, these public lands out here, they're part under the property clause of the Constitution. They are in the management of Congress. Congress has delegated that to a federal agency or one or more federal agencies. And so people shouldn't just assume that all of a sudden the federal government's getting more and more heavy-handed. Actual management of public land started in 1976. And that's why people think that there's been an encroaching on or an increasing power grab by the federal government. No, it's just that the federal government has started managing the lands which it has always had under the property clause. So anyway, those are some important comments that people need to also understand in this debate.
Well, Mark, don't be a stranger. Call in more often.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you, sir. We'll get your reaction next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And let's get to your phone calls about the issues that matter to you, Treasure Valley. Terry, formerly of State College, Pennsylvania, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning. Kevin, we go back and forth here, and it's the Bundy issue, it's the Oregon issue. We've got to go back to our basics. This is state land. Whether we like it or not, it is on state land. And the feds want to commandeer it. They want to do everything that they deem is necessary or whatever it is they wish to do on it. Maybe we need to be looking at that middle road where the states and the feds come together on an equal basis and determine what should happen with these lands. That's not something I hear any chatter about whatsoever. When you looked at the Bundys, Fred, who was just on the federal prosecutor, don't you make an allowance for, like, the Bundys? Their family has been grazing that land for, 60, 70 years? Because they are right on the border of it. Isn't there an allowance for that? This is also, everybody wants to be one-sided. It's one way or the other. There's got to be a middle here that satisfies everybody. And I don't have that middle road. I don't have that answer to that. But I'm impressed with how many people still are very concerned about the Bundys and the willingness to be involved rather than just to shut it out. It tells me that there still are some real patriots left out there. Kevin, what would you do? We're gonna put the broadcaster in the spot here.
I'm gonna go to traffic and weather together. Is where I'm going. Because it's the end of the program. Yes, I need to go to traffic and weather together, Terry.
Good job. See you later.
All right. And quickly to Tom in Nampa. Take us home, Tom, on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, yeah, I was just talking about that last call, or not the last one, the one before, Mark, I think it is. Mark's got some issues. I think he's trying to be there, but the thing is if I remember correctly, the Bundys grazed that land for the last 100 years. They had the grazing rights, and they paid after the BLM came in and started managing that ground. They paid their grazing fees up till I think it was the last 20 years when all of a sudden the tortoise became endangered and they started cutting back grazing rights. And when they cut them back to less than half of what they had, the Bundys felt it was unfair to continue to pay somebody to keep trying to put them out of business.
Thank you, Mark.